What's one thing that all of your favourite producers have in common? Their drums always smack. Whether that's J Dilla's laid-back swing, the Neptunes' crisp bounce, or DJ Premier's raw, gritty chops. Great drums are the backbone of every great beat. Now, I know their drums don't sound the same. A Dilla drum beat doesn't sound like a Neptunes drum beat. DJ Premier's drums don't sound like Timbaland's. But here's the thing, if your drums don't hit, your beat won't either, no matter how good the rest of it sounds. In this video, I'll break down some of the most important things to focus on to make sure your drums knock every single time. We'll cover everything from sound selection to layering, processing, adding percussion, fills, creating space, and more. So let's get straight to it. So great drums start with great sounds. So if your sound selection's off, you're already at a disadvantage. The first thing you need to do is build a library of sounds that you can go to every single time. So throw away those stock sounds and start digging for drum sounds that you like. A good place to start for free drums is on the Drum Kit subreddit, or if you're looking to make boom bap, you can sample old vinyl records, you can find samples on somewhere like YouTube to sample. Then you've got some really great producers like Kalen Ellis who are giving away free samples of their packs, so make sure you keep an eye out for that. Or if you've got a budget, places like Splice or Tracklib, or one of my favourites is the Drum Broker, where you can find amazing kits. And your choice of drum sounds will obviously be influenced by the music you want to make. For example, if I'm working on a boom bap track, I'm not going to be using the same drums I'd use if I was making drill music. And something I think is a great time saver and something I should probably do better myself is curating the sounds that you have. So if you find a drum kit, go through the whole kit, find the sounds that you love, put them in a folder. Do that every time you download a kit, and then you'll have a folder full of drums that you like that are ready to use. Right now I want to jump into Logic and break down the sound selection using one of my tracks as an example. So basically what I want to do for this is go through two different ideas that I've been working on in two different styles and talk about why I chose the sounds that I did. So the first one is this sort of like neo-soul, kind of soulful hip-hop, R&B kind of vibe. So it's a little bit more laid back. And this is what that sounds like. So yeah, really mellow, really soulful. So the drums need to suit that sort of vibe. So let's start off with the shakes and the hats. Really kind of live sort of feel. You don't want something sounding too electronic because that wouldn't work with this kind of genre. Next up, the snare. Sounds like a kind of live kit, almost. And then with the kick, I've got two kicks actually. So this is the two of them together. And with those EQs, like I've rolled off the highs on one and rolled off the lows of the other. And you can see, yeah, one of them's really, it's got that thud, and the other one's got those sort of highs in the mids. When I play all of that together, it's got that sort of boom bap kind of feel. A live sounding kit. You don't want this to sound too electronic. You don't want it to have those sort of trappy drums. It's more of a live feel. So think about the genre you're creating. What would work? Listen to songs that you like, listen to those drums and kind of recreate that in your own music. So for the second one, the vibe was more like trappy drums, more electronic sounding drums, and they need to be like snappier, shorter. So the hi-hats are really short. It's like short claps or snares. So you'll hear that when we go through the sounds that I selected for the drums. So let's quickly just play like the instrumental part first. So it's a different tempo, completely different feeling. You need drums to kind of complement that. The first thing I would have added with this would have probably been the hi-hats. And like I said, they need to be really short and snappy. There's going to be rolls and different things like that in those. Then with the clap, short, really snappy clap. And there's a little like ghost snap playing off that. Then you've got the open hat. If you listen to a lot of this music, you'll hear that quite a lot. And with a kick, it's much harder. If we check the EQ, you can see that. Again, in the 80, 100 kilohertz range, it's really thumping. You play that with the 808. And to hear hear the kick with the 808, you have to have certain frequencies, which this kick had. When we bring it all together, this is what it sounds like. So like I said, it's about thinking about what you're making and choosing the sounds that will fit that style or that genre. And hopefully this will give you a better idea of how to do that. So now you've got your sounds and you've made a simple beat, but it still feels a little bit stiff and it's lacking any sort of groove. This is where swing and feel comes into play. Producers like Dilla mastered this. And if you want a deeper dive into Dilla's production, I actually did a video on that a few weeks back, so you can check that out. So there are several ways that you could add groove or swing to your beats depending on how you're programming your drums. First thing you could do is use live hi-hat loops. For me, I think recreating a live drummer's feel is one of the hardest things to do when making your own music. That's why I think sometimes reaching for a live hi-hat loop is the better way to go. Next up, playing your drums in live. One of my go-to methods is to program in the kicks and the snares, and then to record the hi-hats live using either a MIDI keyboard or pads. What this does is injects your own natural timing into the groove of the hats, making the beat feel much more human. And third, there's lots of different things you can do within your DAW. You can use groove templates, you can manually shift different elements of your drum pattern, and I think the best way for me to show you these is to jump back into Logic. So let's do that. So first of all, I want to play these completely straight drums. The kicks, the snares, and the hats are all on the grid. They've been quantized to 1/16. You can hear how straight and boring and dull that sounds. Next up, I've got a pattern where I've played the hi-hats in on my MIDI keyboard, and you can see because I've done this that the velocity of each of the hats is completely different. Unlike the other one where they were flat, they're all the exact same velocity. They're completely off the grid. They're all a little bit late, all by different values as well. Something that's pretty hard to achieve if you're just going to draw them in. Likewise with the kick, there's a couple of them which are off the grid. They come a little bit late, creating that more like drunken kind of Dilla sort of feel. So if we play that together. I also like to use this plugin called LFO tool on my hats, which I use as a kind of tremolo sort of effect. So as you can see, I've set it up so that it's affecting every half bar. And at the end of each half bar, it's kind of ducking the sound down. But it creates this really nice sort of natural live sound. Right, this next track is one where I've been lucky enough to be able to record some live drums or some live hats with a friend. And like I said before, there's nothing like a real drummer. So if we listen to that, you can hear the difference between my program drums and somebody playing them in live. So this is the live kit. Then if I do that with some program drums, which are on the grid, completely quantized, this is what that sounds like. Nobody wants to hear that. And obviously it's not that easy to just get in the studio with a live drummer and record some live takes. So you can sample stuff from vinyl, or you can find hat loops that people have recorded on Splice or on TrackClip. Those are some easy ways to get that live feel. Another trick I like to use is to actually use YouTube to find some amazing hi-hat samples and loops. So with all the big drum companies, they're going to put product demos of their hi-hats on YouTube. And you can just search Zildjian hi-hat demo or Pasty hi-hat demo. And then you'll be able to find them demoing the sounds. And there's some nice little rhythms that you can record in your browser. So I use this thing in Chrome called Chrome Audio Capture, which lets me capture any audio from my browser. All you have to do, click Start Capture, and that will automatically record what's happening. And I'm going to drag that into my DAW, and then I can just find either one shots or little loops that I like, loop that up and create a nice live sounding hi-hat pattern, just like this. Right, so you've got your drum loop, you've added some groove, but the drums still aren't hitting like you would want them to. Maybe because you've taken one shots from different packs, they're not quite glued together properly, or they're lacking the punch that you'd like. This is where we need to start processing the drums together. Now, there's no single right way to process your drums. It's all about what works for your track, and obviously with every type of track it's going to be different. I'm just going to show you some of my favourite ways to beef up and glue your drums together better. So let me jump back into Logic and show you exactly how I do that. So first things first, I've got these drums that I really like. This is them without any processing at all. And then I want to select all of those and bust them to the same channel. So if I pull up the mixer in Logic, I can do that by clicking on output and then selecting the bus that I want. Once that's done, I can start adding effects, compressors, EQs, and anything else I want to add, and it will affect all the drums together. So I'm using one of my favorite plugins here, which I use on pretty much every drum strip that I have, and that's the Knock by Decap. That's basically a multi-effect plugin that you can use on anything, but it was made specifically for drums. You can add some punch, which is boosting up the low end, and specifically your kick. I'm then going to do a little bit of soft clipping, so I'm adding some saturation to the drums. It's kind of rounding off the peaks of the signal. And then finally I want to add some air, which is adding something in the highs and the mids. So that's perfect for your hats and for your snares if you want to bring them out a little bit. And then you can affect the tone. There's a little tone knob at the bottom. If we push it towards the bottom, it's going to boost up the lows. If we push it towards the right, it's going to affect the mids and the highs. Next up, I want to add an RC20 really because I just want to add a little bit of noise, a little bit of make the drums sound a little bit more gritty. So there's a few presets that I really like for this. These vinyl ones are really nice. Again, there's a dry wet knob so you can bring that down. Only want that in there kind of subtly. It's got a lot more punch. There's a lot more energy in the drums. And those are just two simple plugins that I love to have on my drum mixing chain. So next up, we've got one-shot sounds, percussion, fills, and textures. And I think these are the secret ingredient that can take your drums to the next level. These small little details add variation and energy to your track throughout. So first up, adding weird little one-shots and percussion sounds. And one thing I've done is I've built up a small collection of percussion instruments which I record in live to give it that human feel. And next up we've got fills, and a lot of the time for these, I like to get them from drum breaks. Beat Butcher's drum kits are amazing for this. That's probably my most used for stuff like this. Or obviously again, you can sample from old records. And then finally we got textures. You can add elements like vinyl crackle, tape hiss, or ambient noise to give your track more of a warmth or an atmosphere. So the final thing I want to show you is how you can add percussion and one-shots into your samples, and there's a few different plugins and things I want to show you about how you can go about doing that. So I've got this simple loop to start with, and I want to add some percussion into that. So I recorded this shaker myself. It's not perfect at all. I just played it all the way through, and you can hear there's some noise and some talking in the background, which adds that nice ambience. And then again, you've got that nice human feel because it's not perfect at all. Next up, you can add percussion from other sources. So this I'm going to use Loopmaster's Loop Cloud, and I want to add some congas. So I'm going to find a loop, and I'm then going to chop that up to fit with what I already have. So this one's nice because it's got a lot of variation, and you can tell that it's been played in live. And then what I'm going to do is just start chopping that up, find parts of the sample that I like, and just make that fit with the drums I already have. So look where the transients are and make sure they kind of match up, but they don't have to be perfect. See, that's really nice, really subtle, and it's not perfect, but it adds a nice texture in the background. And now you've hopefully got those tips to get your drums sounding right. You're going to need some samples to chop to go with them. If you're looking for some soulful samples, you can check out my pack, Soulful Volume 1, full of song starters and stems to inspire your next track. And I've also got a free sampler kit which you can check out, full of one-shots, midis, and loops to give you a taste of what to expect from my packs. And producers, I've just started my own Discord community, which I hope is going to be a great place for producers and musicians to come, just to chat, to share their music, collaborate, and also to ask questions. So I'd love to see some of you in there. If you want to join, the link is in the description, likewise for the sample packs. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and also subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what topics or production techniques you'd like to see next.